many years. Jim Grapek. For those of you who don't know him and are seeing this on the recording, he's a thought leader. He is a biogeometry practitioner, biometrics, and we're going to hear a little bit about resonance medicine today. We're going to hear a little bit about how healthy people take care of themselves first, and then all of a sudden other healthy people appear. And Jim, that's one of the things I love about you. Hasina and I were just talking before you hopped on about another friend of ours who is so well versed in, she's an expert in her field, of course, and we've been so blessed this week to host many who are experts in their field. But we were talking about the power of organic conversation, and somebody who has fun carrying their message really not only carries the message very well, but ends up surprising themselves in the conversation as well, right? And I know you as that kind of a conversationalist. You're certainly an expert in your field, and you're going to talk to a couple of different things today, not just personal health and public health, but you're a very politically active man, and that's not a lot of times people hear that as divisive. Yeah, you are one of the guys in my what I would consider closest circle of people that I would trust in any conversation, and so I'm looking forward to seeing your face. I know you want to make a grand debut. You are the founder of a 21st century Mecca, and you're going to talk about the Pavilion, I think, briefly. You're going to talk about some pretty special people that you and I both know, that we're lucky to be working with here in the DC Metro. And I'll just hand it over to you. It's an honor to say hello. Let us be.
Okay. Ta-da. Thank you, Tom. It's an honor to be here. Always to talk to you with open-hearted people, like kind of kindred spirits. And I thank you for this opportunity. I will start by, let me bring up my little, I don't need a screen share. I'll smile. Talk about my startup. But as you said, though, so I developed this 21st century Mecca for more conscious, healthy, happier living out of the trials and tribulations of my life, just like anyone else's. We all have our paths to walk, and this happened to be mine. I sure hope it comes to fruition one day soon. Now, especially now, we really need it. So, but how did this happen? So I was in the hospital, running restaurants, some health clubs. I was, for those of you who are thinking or in college and thinking, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? Forget that thought. I'm on my 4th career, and it's all been great. So my dad said, follow your heart, and that's what I've been doing. So I went from restaurants to television production, really because I was not happy or frustrated with what I was seeing in the world, what I thought was a downhill slide by civilization, or society anyway. Well, civilization. And I thought, the programming is terrible. I mean, it's mindless, the boob tube, that sort of thing. I did have a degree in communications, some television, radio. So I thought, let me go into the communications field. I'm right here in Washington, in the center of everything, and maybe I can make a difference. And I did. I mean, actually, for many years, I was 2 blocks from the White House. I learned on the job. I went in with a management background, didn't know anything really about production, but I worked with companies and teachers of production. And I went out with the camera crews and said, what are you doing? And basically got good enough with practice and learning, et cetera, to go from director of marketing to a producer, writer, producer, director, essentially. And had some things on Discovery Channel I had, but what was really important is I used my tools to help bring issues forward that I thought needed to be brought forward. As my path brought me, especially into the health space and better living space, I was filming, covering FDA press conferences, looking at the issues like the fluoride in our water, the mercury amalgams in our dental fillings, some EPA stuff there. I was ended up on the vaccine safety issues. What else? So, and the SSRI, the black box warnings for these psychotropic drugs. So I kind of got involved. I'm looking at this and working with my clients were NIH and NC, National Cancer Institute, and the CDC. And of course, on the other side, though, I was also working with acupuncturists and naturopathic doctors and innovative or practitioners that were outside of mainstream. And I got to see both sides. I kind of had had a foot in both camps. And I realized that we were being lied to. I mean, in a lot of ways, it was big money, big pharma. And so I produced a lot of programs that are still on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, about the vaccines, covering, Andy Wakefield. I mean, a lot of these pioneering doctors, the guys with the arrows in their backs, and but all along, one day we were producing, I produced a program on ADHD because my daughter had some problems and she was breaking out in rashes and attention deficit. And we didn't want to put her on drugs, medications. And I happened to find there was a guy named Dr. Feingold who was here in the area. I mean, this is earlier, but he was working with Kaiser Permanente and he developed a diet called the Feingold program, which basically didn't take sugar out of the diet, surprisingly, but he removed the preservatives, the food colorings, these autolyzed yeast and other chemical additives, let's say, to the natural flavorings to the products. And when you took all of these out, these kids, 90% of these kids improved perfectly well. But so I did this on my own dime. We produced a program. I hired a publicist. And she called her friend at ABC one day and said, we've got this great program. It's like a real life experience with this producer and his kids. And we went and talked to Kaiser and all these people. And the ABC, her friend at ABC said, sounds great, but we don't want solutions. We don't air solutions, okay? So like, just forget it. We can't help you. And at that point, I realized, oh man, I need to own the distribution outlet too. I need to own the channel, the news, whatever it is. So I started thinking, well, how do I get all this stuff to people? Because along the path of medical devices and everything I learned, and I really had a lot. I started as a physics major, so I understood like the fundamental workings of reality in many respects. And I had a strong spiritual grounding. Maybe that's an oxymoron, but I was on that path. So I started thinking about it. And what came to me was one image was the World's Fairs of the past. And we want to bring it forward, we can say Epcot Center, because Epcot was Walt Disney, and I'm sure he's turning over in his grave right now, seeing what they've done to his name and his products, his genius. But Disney's original vision for Epcot was EPCOT, it was going to be the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. And he was putting everything new in there, and it was a working community. The idea, it's not a tourist attraction. He wanted to build this so people could move in there and actually start growing, evolving as a human race and sharing what they learned and maybe multiplying these things. So I suppose the Pavilion is Epcot 2.0. I'm really sticking to Disney's vision of what we can do. And excuse me. I love Disney. I love theme parks. I love roller coasters. I know a lot of people do. I love science centers are cool, but most of the science centers today, and I worked in the IMAX science center industry for a little bit, they're catering to the dollar. And they're only going to put exhibits up that aren't controversial. I mean, everything is all these institutions, medicine, education, science, they are gatekeepers of the status quo because we've moved so far beyond that. I mean, I've seen and talked to people who have walked through walls, unbelievable stuff, free energy can power your home forever. I mean, it costs you $5,000 initial fee for this device and your home is powered forever. But they do not want, I mean, the powers that shouldn't be, I like to say, do not want this in our homes. They don't want us to be able to relax, control our lives, have control over our money, that sort of thing. So all of this goes in, I said, let's build this all into a pavilion. Take all of these things that are out there, all of these pioneers that are doing things and bring but most importantly, a place to bring the community together, to learn about this, to get better health care, to buy these things to heat their homes, whatever it might be, to grow our own organic superfoods. Because I'd like to have, we're going to have on the bottom level, our own kind of indoor greenhouse, maybe outdoor as well. I was working with a guy, or hope to be, I'm talking with him in Virginia, who's got soil grown organic foods that are unbelievable. I mean, they grow like a 20-pound tomato plant, which normally might put out 20 pounds of tomatoes, with his soil biome will put out 100 pounds of tomatoes, and they taste great. So that's what we all need to be moving towards. Now, personally, I love growing things, having a garden. I can't right now, really. I have a few pots, but not everybody can. Not everybody wants to be a farmer. We're at a time where things are chaotic, which in a sense is good. It is what it is, but there's a very positive side to that. So growing, how do we bring this all together, make it easy for people, get better food, start opening their minds? And so this pavilion, as I say, is a solution to today's existential crisis. We have the old paradigms. I'm just going to read here for a second. As the old paradigms, institutions and models of leadership collapse, people are beginning to look at how they can take responsibility for their lives, especially for their health. We know that. Many are coming together, forming new communities with the help of people, platforms like Telegram and others, and they're envisioning what structures might serve the community better. Mostly, I would say, in terms of law, big one, governance, big one, healthcare, big one, and education. So all these are converging right now in this mess we're in. And this is where I'd like to see pavilions helping. Now, as I will, to cut to the chase at the end, or my final question on this document I gave you, it says it's time for us to all build our own pavilions. So I just talked to somebody who's going off the grid, setting up, she's outside of Alaska doing her whole thing. And that's great. If, for everyone that wants to do that, or you can find your own niche or do something, more power to you. We need to follow our hearts. But for me, my thought was, I'm a Star Trek fan also. I'm thinking moving forward, 21st century, we all get together. There's no need for money, all these things. I'm happy to share my, live in a sharing society. I always thought that way, actually. We can have, but anyway, let me go back to this. So people should start developing own pavilions, or participating, because this isn't really my project. I'm shepherding it. It, like everything else, it's channeled in from some, and this would be a fun place, like Star Trek-y type of place with the values, with the, hey, we could have organic wine. I'm not saying live like a celibate, life. If that's your thing, that's great. But I'm kind of a middle of the road guy. I think that's the Buddhist way, right? Middle, no extremes, but you can try things. Enjoy life. That's what we're here for. So that is what I'm bringing to this. And it's only a community hub. I mean, we can have buildings around it. You could live nearby, but it would have there the next generation of healthcare. And I'm working with all these doctors, and I do my medical and freedom podcast twice a week with Charlie. We've had great people on, and I see a lot of stuff happening out there. Biogeometry is the next thing. It's a whole science. And Dr. Kareem is an advisor in this project, and we'll build these pavilions and design them. So just by walking inside, the building itself will raise your energy and help clean your blood and everything else. Like, oh yeah, we can be doing this. We can be doing this to our homes. And at the same time, that biogeometry can make our cell phones healthy. It can make our wireless routers healthy. All of these things I use to make, in case I have regular foods that have pesticides on them or some issues that are not healthy, I can clear them out. I mean, literally transmute the energies. This is all backed by data and science. So this is what we want to share out to everyone. And it's amazing stuff. I mean, there was an experiment in growing foods using salt water right from the ocean or the Red Sea. They got vegetables to grow perfectly because we can change the energy. But this has been, again, another piece of that science that the institutions have suppressed. The gatekeepers don't want that, because then we're not using oil, then we're thinking for ourselves, then we're not sick and easily controllable. So that's kind of the idea on that. I call the pavilion a place where the people in the community can come together to rejuvenate their bodies, expand their minds, and nourish their souls. And we need a lot of that. I mean, we are mainstream religion as well. I mean, look where the Pope is now, and basically telling people to get their clot shots. So there's a lot of craziness out there. And the pavilion centers are really designed as centers, like as in heart-centered and centers for, we need to go back to the center to rebalance our lives and move forward. So are you ready to build your pavilion? Join me or there's no franchise yet. We're working on all this. Maybe I'm talking to people in Florida for a first one. But the idea is I'd love everyone to own these anyway. You buy it like a timeshare maybe, or you just whatever. So it can be a community. Everyone's a stakeholder. And there's food there just in case, as a food security, because you never know what's going on these days. And the climate, which is changing. So let's see, anything else on that? I think that kind of covers that on that one.
Well, I'd like to layer over a metaphor. And it's probably not an accident that you talked about one of your early life eye openings when you realized that you had the message, right? When you were talking about having the clarity of the message, but that you went and approached the networks and they didn't want to carry the message for you. And you said you needed the distribution center. And over and over, and much of what you point to is that sort of synthesis, right? And it's put yourself in the vibe personally, right? So it's certainly a thine own self be true, personal health optimization sort of thing. But then all of a sudden you've got people around you, and I love your language about everybody, kind of putting their own flavor to it. And then once you've assembled your communities, you've got that playground, that Epcot 2.0-ish playground in which to take and run with whatever your idea is, whether you're a movie producer or a writer or a scientist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's such a brilliant, it's a brilliant reflection. And so many of the keynotes, the plenary sessions already just in the past 48 hours have pointed to this synthesis dynamic, right? So when we talk about evolutionary dynamics, in a system, Mama Gaia-ish kind of language. Somebody made the distinction yesterday. It's not our job to become life. It's our honor as Godhead to be life. Yeah. And we're always becoming, we're always evolving. And this word becoming keeps poking at me in the ribs today. It really,
We're
become
humans being. We're
being.
being. Yeah, I mean, we're beings. We're being. That's an active word. We're being. Yeah.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah. So speak to that a little bit. Speak to the invigorated individual who brings themselves into this community, maybe. And then if you want to put it in, it's a sacred food
Well,
stuff.
yeah,
Our core
I will,
value
but I'm gonna give you something else. And it's funny. I was reading. I mean, I've read certainly Peter Diamandis books and Singularity University and a lot of the brilliant thinkers out there that say we've got the solutions and we can do this, or technology is going to help us. Well, it's all great. And it's funny. But you need a place to put them. I think, I mean, my idea is you got to have these hubs or at least start with one, central one. So, and part of this is bringing in like Bioregulatory Medical Institute. I'm talking with different people to have a think tank like in these hubs. So we can look at, and we've got the population for doing our own studies on the foods, on the better health outcomes. Everything is right there. So I'm hoping, my plan is to bring like a number of these like organizations in the space together, even give them some space in the pavilion that they can act as a think tank, and we can be together working with the people and the communities and doing this. To your point, and I've had a lot of, people have said, oh, well, this is only for rich people, or it's exclusive, or, whatever. I think there are a lot of people, look, there are definitely a lot of people out there now that are, what's a good word? That aren't, that don't buy into our narrative. That's all. They follow Dr. Fauci, the authorities. They're getting following all the mandates and so forth, and wearing their masks. We have a lot of people here that wear their masks all the time. And initially I was a little like flustered by that, or triggered's a good word. It's good. It taught me I'm triggered by this. Why? And then of course, going deeper, I realized, well, wait a minute. We're all expressions of God, of the Godhead, of God. And if God wants to experience this, amen. This is exactly what you're here to do. And I honor and respect that. So now I'm good with like, even the evil the evil scientist, criminal Klaus Schwab, I get it. That's good. You're serving your purpose here. But back to the pavilion. I mean, any place like that, you open the doors, and my thought is, first of all, we're catering to probably people that are on the fence, because I'm going to have a sign like, the masks are not allowed here unless you have allergies or something, but that sort of thing. I do want some of that in there. But a lot of people are just getting their feet. They're just waking up, or they're just seeing this, and they're not really sure. So look, we've got a great services, a healing spa, the medical and health stuff, the restaurants, organics, the artisans on the village floor. So all of that is good for anybody. I mean, you don't have to be like enlightened, enlightened master to walk in. And but at the same time, we will have messaging. I want to put messaging up there that is kind of like, I mean, it's that's heartfelt, that gets people to think a little bit, and have classes and programs that actually do go into this for those people that want to. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So there will be opportunities just by the nature of events and our weekly TED-like talks for people that are interested in this to come together and go afterwards. We're right there. We got restaurants and the talks. Get together, come after for dessert and talk with the speaker, with your neighbors. And that's how I envision it as really a place to bring. And it could be at a different levels. It could be just people starting out like, wow, I had no idea this was going on. Oh, okay, let me go to this. Really, I'm gonna go to this talk. And then they might have people there at the same wavelength as them. Like, yeah, did you know that? No. Huh. Right. So we're all evolving. And my thought is you need a platform that's going to help everybody, pretty much everybody at whatever level they're at to move forward. And also, I mean, obviously a big piece of this, and let me see if I can move this over. There's some great things coming out by oh, that's me. Okay.
While you're looking for that, I'll presence the idea. When we first bought the
I
yoga
got it.
studios
Okay, you
about,
can.
about 15 years ago, and I started looking down the road and was also looking for probable retreat centers. You know, we'll probably all get there at some point. And the way I was languaging it was, yes, we certainly want experts and we want deliverables. But I think what you're pointing to is we're moving away from the traditional top-down speech from the podium, and practitioners of all kinds, the better versed you get, the more humble you become. And that doesn't mean quiet. That means courageously, tenaciously hungry to know where you are missing the next thing, right? And there's another exclamation point. And so, you know, practitioners come in, seen as, you know, a beautifully traveled and a very experienced healer and teacher. And, you know, let's say she brings in an Akashic Records workshop that integrates with yoga practice, whatnot. She's there as the deliverable, of course, and people pay to come to the workshop, but she knows that she gets to talk to people like you know, and then we all get to learn together. And that's what I'm hearing, that kind of a playground. And she had her hand up too. She got a question for you.
Give me one before your question. I want to share something with you. So I'm also a bioresonance biofeedback practitioner. And I got into this also because I was working with a company in my video travels years ago and doing some marketing and work for them. I saw this technology and it blew me away and blew my wife away too. And we ended up buying one. I said, well, we have it. I might as well get board certified and be able to use it and help people. So I've been doing that. And I want to show something. It's remarkable. And most doctors don't even know, but I am working with doctors, helping them diagnose their patients right now, that they don't really know what's, you know, patients that are pretty chronically ill. So this is perfect for that, but I want to share a screen with you because this is not for doctors, but this particular, I just put this flyer together to give you some idea. Can you see that? Okay. So this device has amazing capabilities built in. For example, as you can see, psycho-emotional entrainment options. I mean, addiction is something we all work with, but let's go over to the right. Telekinesis activation, build enlightenment, cleanse etheric body, lucid dreaming. I pressed the lucid dreaming a few times. I had a lucid dream. Now, it doesn't always happen. It doesn't always happen right away. But this, you know, from the reports I get from people that I work with and others in the field, et cetera, there's some really cool stuff in there. And who would think that it's even in a device? Like you could do class, and I've been to classes like this at in Washington. They have an Institute for Spiritual Development. So I took classes on healing and kind of medical, being a medical intuitive, that's telepathy, just to develop some of my skills. And this device has some of that built in. I mean, it's certainly a good starting point, It might be like someone that wants to put their feet in the water. I'm not promoting it for myself. I'm just saying this is what's out there, guys, that everybody should know about. And I like to share, and that's part of the whole Pavilion thing. Let me turn that screen share off. Yeah. So your question, Hasina.
Well, what's really interesting to me is that your vision with the pavilions, with the like think tanks and the different practices and the learning from one another and just being in community. And I love the idea of the different facets of community moving together. So it's not just like one practice or one facet of being. It's a whole lot of them. What's your vision for what would you call success? Your vision comes to reality. What will that reality look like for you?
For me, good question. Thank you. That reality looks like pavilions, which are kind of pyramidic in shape, I will say, and I'd like to keep it that way, around the globe, basically. I can't say success could be one, success could be 20, but I can see these certainly in, and share the blueprints, whatever. Financially, I've had 2 feasibility studies done. I mean, I have a business background also, that say these can be financially successful. We're still in a cash, currency model, though I hope that quickly changes, not at least the corruption part of it. But these are, the success is community people going in, sharing great ideas in the hot tub, sitting in the, at a talk with people, traveling to the next pavilion to talk about something else, having a venue for all the Greg Bradens and, and today's luminaries and everybody out there, integrative docs, whoever it might be, to be able to go to communities and talk to these people and spread that. So it would be like the beacon for next generation living, essentially, and healthy, more conscious, more meaningful living is what it is. I mean, I spoke to you'll like this, the Eternia organization, a nonprofit in Florida, works dealing with, Dr. Eben Alexander was one of the founders, who after his near-death experience, who didn't believe it, then had that near-death experience and said, okay, I'm on board, something's going on. So I spoke to them about co-developing an exhibit on rethinking death and dying, in our science space or on the main floor. So people walking in can stop. I'd like to see people let go of that fear of dying and start to embrace new concepts and where they can be going. Because we've been under that spell, and really that is a spell for a long time. And it's holding a lot of people back. It's causing a lot of pain. So that's just one. I mean, lots of stuff like that. And what was did I touch on your question? Yeah, success. I mean, all of that is just being part of this and bringing the people in like yourselves to help. Okay, this is what we need, Jim. Or in your pavilion up where you are, whatever it might be, bringing the right people together. Maybe it's people like, I kind of think once we start going, let's say later this year, that there's a pavilion champion. We can have champions in different states or cities, regions that are on the same page. We start talking as it's going along, they're involved, and we kind of grow together again. And either it's however the construction money, et cetera, comes up, but we all are building these and making them work for our communities.
That's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. I wanted,
Brilliant.
what do you think? What time are we at? We got
Yeah.
20
Why don't you use that as a bridge, Jimmy? I know you wanted to, one of the lions of science meets transformation, left the physical body last week. And I know
Yeah,
you wanted to say a few
Jim
words
Turner.
about him.
Yeah, so Jim Turner, who was one of my early Pavilion advisors, and I worked with him on a lot of things. He was president of, co-founder maybe of Citizens for Health, chairman of the board. Jim is the guy that actually worked for 10 years to get acupuncture legalized in this country by changing the status, the legal status of the needles and how that worked as a class something medical device. Excuse me. He worked with different groups in Congress to actually get us our national organic standards. He wanted biodynamic farming instead, the Steiner School, which we should have had, or that's ideal, of course. You're embracing the environment in much more holistic, integrated fashion, but it didn't work. So he went with organic, and we got organic standards really because of Jim Turner. He personally sued like the Air Force and was able to get 67,000 Air Force people off of or released from having to get an expired anthrax vaccine. He's worked with the FDA. He was instrumental in keeping homeopathy alive here with the FDA. I mean, and the list goes on. I don't even know, but at the service, there were like 50 people that showed up in person and at Zoom. It was in Washington last weekend. And really, really impressive. I mean, and it was really nice to see everybody coming together, stepping up, telling the stories. So one of the truisms, though, I'm going to share a truism of Jim Turner or two. And he is survived by his partner. I mean, you'd say his wife, but she's his partner. They've been together for a long time. Betsy Lairfield, she's amazing. And they share the work. So she's involved in everything. And hopefully she'll be carrying on with all the issues, SB 277 or the vaccine stuff, California. They've got a lot of cases going, and we shall see. But the Turnerism, as we like to say, a Turnerism, one of them was he recognized that often it's the us versus them mentality. And he would say that we'd be doing, he'd say, we'll do better if we come from a place of unity rather than duality, which is absolutely correct. So he wouldn't go in as an opponent or he would counsel anybody going to the FDA or anywhere else. It's not us versus them. It's like, what do you want? How can we find common ground? You know, we both want something. Let's work. Let's start there. And the other thing was, he would say to somebody like me, when I would say, I want to make the world a better place, for example, Jim would say, the world is already perfect as it is. But how would you like to change it? And he's right. I mean, it is perfect as it is. And there's a lot, as you were saying earlier, Tom, that we just don't know. I mean, way out of our pay grade, you know, what's going on. So I like that. It's the world is perfect. Everything's perfect, but how would we like to see it changed? And that's what I'm working on. And I believe that it's as much or more what we do up here that will bring forth those changes as it is to actual physical actions. But as Wayne Dyer and many of our great teachers of the past have said, you need to do a little bit of both. So I'm working on it. We're all working on it. I know that.
It's a beautiful bridge, actually, you know, given the context of the week and already so many great speakers talking about that kind of unity and how we've been really handcuffed and without pointing to any kind of malevolent intention, educated ourselves down. You were pointing to those dynamics earlier, and since you mentioned Feingold, you know, he would talk about just eat real, right? And
Yeah.
it doesn't, I, as a scientist, I want to dig into the macronutrients and the blah, 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 and dissect it. No, was it real, right? And what you're pointing to, which is real, is a unity consciousness, which is always a being, always, and it's not a being in isolation. There is no such creature, right? Here, as we're exploring these dynamics this week, we're seeing all of the different ways that we can unravel some of the metaphors where we've strangled ourselves into control or safety. Maybe, a couple of speakers were pointing to this yesterday. How has it been me versus you? And all of the language that we layer over us versus them.
Yeah.
Somebody was talking about it this morning with national borders and whatnot. How do we isolate? And if we could find a way to be inclusive in our language and our forward thinking.
I want to jump into your scientific mind for a second and blow it if I can, if you permit me.
I've been asking for a lobotomy for a while.
Okay, guys. So recently, relatively recently, I got to spend some time with a man who hasn't eaten in 20 years. He drinks water.
Okay.
But he's a dowser, and he's learned how to douse of the uptake in the water, the foods, the nutrients, the sun. I don't know exactly, but basically through dowsing, to take in all the stuff he needs, he said, without eating food. Because, and I feel bad for the guy. I mean, he was allergic to everything. So basically everything he ate, he got sick from. So I understand why you try to do that. I like to eat myself, but so I grew up, it was the phrase was, you are what you eat, and now in my wiser age, I think it's really, you are what you think. And so even with the micronutrients and all that good stuff, I think a lot of that is really our perception of it going to our energetic body and then filtering in to make the adjustments on our physical body. And maybe we can incorporate that into our next generation of teaching in terms of, or eating of foods and how you think about it. Like if you're going to eat that cheesecake, that's great. Just picture it as nutrition, it's like, wow, this is like light energy going into my body. But it's true. And one other funny thing about this guy is he was a little bit on the fat side. He was a little heavy. And you'd think like, how is that possible? My Alexi was saying, how is it? I don't think I believe it. Like this guy is kind of fat. I said, you got to start in the beginning. First of all, he hasn't eaten in 20 years. And I know that's true. That's the main thing. Whether he's thin, fat, anything else is irrelevant at this point. I mean, that's his body image in the mind and what he put in there. That's okay. But that's the future I see where we're going. Where look, the TM movement. I'm a TM guy also, but I like the conscious, the visualization or active meditation and visualization as much as the passive. But going back, I think it was it 72 or something, 68, when the TM group here in Washington, they sat down, they got a bunch of people together and they meditated, they pictured, visualized the crime rate in Washington dropping. Remember that experiment?
Mm-hmm.
And it went down by like 30%, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And I've studied with Dr. Tiller, and I have a video out with him. That's what we can be doing in neonatal wards, in pavilions, in our neighborhood, but it's helpful is to have these meditation groups that can, like prayer groups, really, I suppose, same idea, but you need to know how to do that active meditation. And people that have some training, you get that coherent, the coherent waves, energies going out, and we can have a robust effect on physical reality. Wow. I mean, if you read Conscious Acts of Creation by Dr. Tiller, what they did in these repeatable experiments by just having 4 people meditate for 15 minutes on changing the pH of water, speeding up the growth of fruit flies, and changing a chemical reaction, it's remarkable. Do we hear about it? No. So we need to bring these things forward because it's all out there. It's all possible. Our lives can be so much, will be really amazing in the next couple of years as everything shifts to this consciousness. And
It's very
you don't have
refreshing.
to change the world. I keep telling, right? We don't have to change the world because there's just like multiple timelines. So as all of the great gurus said, just change yourself, turn the channel. I like Bashar's way of putting it. Turn the channel, pick what you want to see, and just focus on that. Don't start wavering up and down on crappy stuff. Here's what I want. Here's the world. I know it's there. I'm going to it. And you will get there. I mean, it might be different than my world. You might want to be on the cooking channel, see something. I'm on the Pavilion champagne in the jacuzzi channel, and all kinds of good stuff. So
Love it, love it, love it. That's brilliantly said. And since today's core value is food, day 1 was sacred earth, day 2 was sacred water. And today, which I believe is the 95th day of the 99 days of peace through unity, as we build towards World Peace Day. Sacred food, I've been looking for language for years now, that it's not just what we chew and swallow, and it's well beyond the chemical composition of the thing, even that we do chew and swallow, but it's certainly what we drink. It's certainly what we consume metaphysically. It's what you consumed as well. Yeah. You and I spending some time in the room, I'm affected by what you had this morning as well. Not just what you chewed and swallowed, but did you have a nice night's sleep? Did you have a lucid dream? What kind of angelic presence is coming along with you, right? And I think I see Hasina grinning. She probably has some questions and follow-up for you on that front too, because she speaks those languages so deeply. Is something brewing in there?
It's very interesting because this morning I did an Akashic Records reading, in our convergence room. And Jim, what you were saying about, well, you didn't say it in these words, but how you think of the food affects it. And that was one of the divine messages that I received, that it's not just, taking in the food, and we can all feel what good food is. If we're under the weather, then our bodies want what is good food. They don't want the fast foods. However, it's just when you bring your energy to the food, your energy combined with the food creates a combination, makes a difference. So it matters what your energy is. So that's one of the messages that came through. And I love this concept of how we combine our energy with what we take in, mind, body, spirit. And then we get back to the full circle, that when you've done that and you're in alignment, then you're enabled, you're able to make a better choice as to, well, how am I feeling? What am I thinking? Because you're on a higher vibration and you just go higher on that spiral.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's important. A lot of people aren't aware that grass-fed beef, it's not, well, first of all, let's say grass-fed beef, for example, or pastured chickens. The protein complex, just from eating for them to eat the right foods, their natural foods, the meat protein changes. So we're getting something healthier to begin with. But there are also plenty of studies now out there showing that for commercially raised, the feedlot animals, there's a lot of stress, And we pick up on those emotions when we eat it. People, children especially, that are eating commercially fed, grain-fed beef, for example, and not necessarily the grain as much as they're in a traumatic situation, the way they're raised, slaughtered, etc. And they are more hyperactive and aggressive than people who eat naturally raised animals. So, I mean, all of it points in that direction, that we need to be living in harmony with nature. And another thing, that biogeometry has all of this built into it, which is why I'm so excited to be bringing this out to the world in one form or another.
That's really beautiful. That's a great way to close too. Thank you, Jim. And so folks can find you at the pavilioncenter.com. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one way. Yep. Pavilioncenter.com. Pavilion has one L. Just one L. Pavilion Center, thepavilioncenter.com. Or weheal.life. You might like that. I got some cool stuff there. And actually on that site, that's my biofeedback site. But there's some good on the resource page, some videos on our toxic environment, what's around us, and to help people, mitigate that world a little better. Weheal.life. So.
Wonderful. Well, you are a man who walks your talk, and you are one of the bright lights on this planet, one of many, many, many. And I resonate and underline what you said at the very beginning, which is, this is an exciting time where lots of people are waking up. So thank you so much for bringing your message here to this very important platform on this very important week. And I think you just wrote my Thursday broadcast, by the way, that last bit about tormented foods. Yeah.
There you go.
We talked a lot about the tormented water yesterday, and how we all can, just by being aware of it, like you said, I loved your several different ways that you pointed to nothing wrong with the world, right? It is what it is.
Yeah, I have a quick last thought, biogeometry. So I'm in class years ago, 2012, actually, and at the Vesica Institute in Asheville. And I remember one of the early practices we did was taking just a piece of white paper, and we would put it in our hands and pray, say a prayer, or a Ho'oponopono, that, or a blessing, whatever you wanted. You would put it in. We actually compared like 3 blessings. We do that. You hold it for like 20 seconds, and then put it down. And we had the tools to be able to measure what was there, like higher harmonics of gold, ultraviolet, like angelic, wisdom, spiritual energy. You could look at all that, which was really cool. But what was, I thought, cooler was, in a sense, all the biogeometry work we're doing puts those same energies into the food to transmute it, everything else. Essentially, it's like taking prayer, or very sacred, the sacred, he calls the BG3, higher harmonic of gold, ultraviolet, and then a horizontal negative green, a horizontal green, kind of a spiritual carrier wave, and it puts it in things. So you have all these tools to do it, but at the heart of it, it's just prayer. It's just kind of our sacred connection. Anyway, I thought that was pretty cool. Hey, thank you for what you're doing. You guys have a great day, and I'm gonna duck out. You'll continue on, I know.
Yeah, I know you have a 4 o'clock. Thank you